I didn't have insurance on the equipment.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
That's not true.
Yes.
Girlfriend,
I literally have chills
just remembering it.
What I felt like. And here's the kicker of this.
Yeah.
I wasn't digital yet. I was still DJing on CDs.
Hey there, CEOs. My name is Brandy Gar, and I am on a mission to help you, the wedding industry entrepreneur, to build a profitable wedding business that you actually love. Welcome to the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. On today's show, CEOs, we are taking it all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, and we are sharing with you episode number 12, slightly modified because I absolutely love this guest. Kristin Hubbard is the owner of RDJ Rocks and Photo Booth Rocks here in Orlando, Florida. And I am so excited to introduce her to our lineup of speakers for this year's Wedding Pro CEO Summit. Y'all, Kristin has built one of the largest all-female DJ companies. She is a force to be reckoned with in the wedding industry, and her spirit and her fire is absolutely palpable. I know that she is going to blow your minds at the Wedding Pro CEO Summit. So if you don't already have your ticket, y'all, they are going fast. And once they are gone, they're gone. We cannot open more seats because there's 4 walls in the ballroom and we are maxing it out this year. Like there's hard walls. You guys know how it goes, right? There's no more space. This was such a fun episode to talk to Kristin about. We talk all about how her business actually started, how she got from marketing and into DJing, and then started this powerhouse brand of all female DJs, and where she is now and where she's looking to go in the future. This episode aired about 2 years ago, so it's really been so cool to watch so many of the things she talked about in that episode unfold, and how her business has grown so much, how she's grown as an educator and a speaker. And I'm just so thrilled for you guys to get to really experience her spirit and her education and her fire. It's just going to light you up at the summit. It's going to be so good. Also, I think it's kind of fun to listen back to some of these original episodes of the podcast. You guys, this was episode 12. So the name of the podcast was different. The music for the podcast was different. We were learning all the things. So much of it just sounds so different than our podcasts do now. But I listened back to this episode. I was just like, we have to re-air this because it's so good. And it will be so valuable to so many of our podcast listeners now and for our summit attendees. So one more time, if you have not gotten your ticket, please drop down into the show notes below, grab your ticket for the Wedding Pro CEO Summit so that you do not miss it this year, June 5th through 8th in Orlando, Florida. And I cannot wait for you to hear this episode from my friend, Kristin Hubbard.
I am so glad that you're here today. And one of the main reasons I love you and really wanted to have you on the show is you stick out so much in our industry as somebody who has mastered their brand and really has honed in on what it is and who it is and how it speaks. And I just think there's so much to be learned from watching you and how you protect that so much. And so I'm so excited to have you here today and can't wait to start chatting.
I know, me too. I feel like all the behind the scenes chat was also fun too. So sorry everybody missed that, but that's fine.
I know, that's always the fun stuff behind the scenes. So let's start off. If you just tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of your background and how you got into the industry.
Yeah, so I'm Kristin. I own RDJ Rocks. We are an all-female DJ company based out of Orlando for now.
Ooh, I like it. A hint to the future.
For now, who knows what the future holds. I went to school for advertising and PR with a minor in marketing and teaching. I hated substitute teaching, by the way.
I cannot even, no.
Yeah,
No.
It was horrible.
The kids always hate the substitute. I mean, so like that's the worst job ever.
And like they would leave me with a list of things I had to make the kids do, and when I made the kids do it, they hated me worse. So I was like, I can't with this.
No, there's no win.
So when I got out of college, I was working in sales and marketing for a hotel.
Okay.
At the time, it was the Nickelodeon Hotel. So I think that's what really enforced what I already knew about branding.
Okay.
And when I got into that, I was like, ooh, maybe my next step is I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to work for Viacom and I want to be the brand manager of Nickelodeon. Even when we were supposed to develop brochures or event concepts or whatever it was. Just to give you one example, we were never allowed to use the word fun in verbiage. It had to be applied. It had to be assumed.
Really?
So
that's interesting.
There were little, and you know, when it came to their characters, there were guidelines like such and such character couldn't be next to such and such character when you designed a brochure. So I think, you know, being exposed to that maybe stuck in the back of my mind. I don't know if I intentionally, you know, people ask me, why all females?
Right.
I'm going to be honest, like it never was the plan from day one. I really wasn't even supposed to have DJs.
Really?
It was just supposed to be me.
You. Okay.
Just supposed to be me. Like, so I was working at the hotel, and then the economy got really, really bad. It was about 2009, 2010.
Okay.
And layoffs were coming every pay period.
Sure.
Yep. And so one day they called me into the office and they said, "What are you working on?" Girl, I had my spreadsheet of everything I was working on. And he took that whole spreadsheet and he just threw it in the trash. And he's like, "We're going to make you a salesperson." And I'm like, "What?
Oh, no.
What is sales?"
Right.
He's like, "You're going to have to sell a room night." What is a room night?
Oh,
I don't know
word.
what that is, because my job at the hotel was to sell all the amenities to the guests that were already there.
Got it.
So pretty flyers and banners that says, "Go visit our food court for blah, blah, blah."
Right.
Like, I don't know. So it opened me up to a whole nother avenue of like, okay, promotions and selling. And there also was no direction. None. I started with
Really,
a blank
from a
piece
major corporation. You
Yes.
would think, yeah.
And they didn't know either, because there was, I think it may still be the only one, but I don't think there was another Nickelodeon hotel.
Okay.
So you had a hotel, and then they were paying this brand for the brand to be splattered all over it.
Got it. Okay.
So they were managing kind of two different things. It was
Right.
kind of a thing that had never been done.
Okay.
You know?
That makes sense. Yeah.
It was my favorite job. I loved it.
Really?
It took everything I had to be like, okay, I'm going to do this, because in my mind at the time I said, I don't know where life is supposed to take me next.
Yeah.
I love this. So it's not like I'm leaving because I don't like it. I was still DJing on the weekend, because at the time I was going through just some like personal things. So I needed a side job. So that was DJing for me.
Okay.
I absolutely loved it. And then I just thought, well, let me just DJ full time so that maybe I can free up some time to do whatever I'm supposed to do next.
Got it. So it wasn't necessarily meant to be your full-time job. It was just you were going to do it till you figured it out.
In my mind, I left the hotel because DJing was supposed to be the bridge to take me where I was supposed to be.
And was it scary to leave the hotel? Because, I mean, that was probably a solid paycheck versus
terrifying.
DJing.
It was a paycheck. It was disability insurance. It was health insurance. It was 401k. It was all the things that we all strive to get to be secure in life.
Right.
And I was like,
I'm going to just throw it all away. I mean,
all of it.
yeah.
Every piece of
To
it.
be a DJ, which, I mean, there's not the greatest connotation sometimes around
Correct.
DJ, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. So you were DJing for like in clubs or
No.
Okay.
So I was DJing only for private events.
Okay.
For one of our well-known local companies.
Okay.
Who still is one of my mentors to this day.
Aww.
And so when I made the decision, I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I want you to be the first one to know, and I want to know if you're okay with it."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, let me know what I can do. Let me know how this is going to work." And
That's
so
awesome.
he was the first person I set my logo to. When I got the website up, I was like, "Okay, this is what the website looks like. Are you okay with this?"
Yeah.
And I said, all the events I have, I would like to keep those. I don't, I'll make sure that I 100% represent you when I'm out.
Okay.
But, the reason why I'm explaining this is because I'm going to start going to networking events.
Right.
But I would like to go for them for myself.
For your own company.
And so I don't want there to be any confusion when I start doing that. And he's like, no. And even the first few, he's like, he would introduce me and say, this is my girl, but she's going out on her own. So let's support her.
I mean, I think
that's going to make me cry.
I know. I'm listening to your story and thinking there's so much value in that exactly because so many people grow up under a company, right?
Yep.
And then they want to go out on their own. And I think there's so much this industry has to offer.
Yeah.
There's so much room for everybody, but there's a right way to do it. And there's a wrong way to do it, right? And we've had both happen to us.
Yep.
I think you have too. And so I think that just says a lot about the fact that you still consider him a mentor and that you guys are still close. And because that was the right way to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily care if my girls go out and do their own thing, but I want to know and I want to be aware and,
Well, yeah. And then, what can we do to support them or nurture them or be a partnership in the future?
It makes so much sense because it's such a small industry.
I was looking at, we were talking about the budget before we started, and I was, pulling all the analysis from 2019. And there was one wedding report that comes out every single year. 19 hasn't come out yet, but 18, there were 19,000 some odd weddings.
I saw that. I actually saw that. And I was like,
19,000 just in like Orlando, Kissimmee area.
It's crazy.
So if you think about that, even if you are the smallest of companies and you're only doing 25 weddings a year, or you're a multi-op with multiple team members and you're doing 1,000 a year, you're still not even touching this. Like there truly is plenty.
So there's just always be thinking about your future when you come into the industry, right? And don't burn bridges. I mean, I think
never burn bridges.
Massive. It's just massive.
Because we all talk.
Exactly. And everybody knows. I know. And that's truthful. We all kind of have each other's backs too.
Yeah.
Right. So how'd you come up with the name RDJ Rocks?
Okay. So this actually, there's two kind of stories to this.
Okay.
I didn't come up with it.
Oh, you didn't?
Nope. My brides did.
Really?
And it started with just my DJ Rocks.
Okay.
And I was like, well, it needs to be like our, because like inclusive.
Okay.
But then also, let me give a shout out to a photographer, Misty Miuto, because she really kind of pushed me. Everyone kind of has their influences.
Yep.
And when you get into that certain moment at that certain time, when someone tells you just the right thing you need to hear, even though maybe you've heard it 1,000 other times.
Yep.
And at the time, she, was working on something to do with DJing, and she had a website, and she mentioned the name, but then also the brides, and it was a rough night. I mean, it was in the middle of it wasn't even the transition. It might have been 2007 or 2008. And she was running a local photography group.
Okay.
And said, can you come DJ this after you get out of work? And so I was like, sure. So my speakers were in my car, and I drove down there. And it was like they had ran over by an hour in the photo shoot. It was almost 10 o'clock at night. There was no changing my face. I was so tired and so frustrated that like the tears were just coming. And I'm like, Misty, like can you wrap this up?
Right. I got to go.
And she was very patient. She pulled me to a side and she goes, this isn't you. Like, this isn't you. And no, I can't wrap up.
I was just thinking, I'm interested to know how Misty answered this question.
Yeah, she was like, no, we can't wrap up.
Right.
But she pulled me to a side and she goes, you can't keep burning at both ends of the stick.
Yeah.
She goes, you are made for so much more.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're not starting your own DJ company and taking this, here, there, and, wherever else. And, I think whatever the words she said to me that night, I was just like,
it was kind of your epiphany, your light bulb moment.
And so probably a combination of that and maybe a few other things. I was just like, okay,
it's time.
Let me bridge this. Because I literally had no idea what I wanted my future to look like.
Yeah.
When people are like, what's your 5-year? I don't know. Literally don't know.
Do you still not? Because you seem like you're very like... There's a strategic method to everything.
There is.
Yeah.
So usually by about the end of the year, beginning of January, every single year, there's a process I put myself through.
Sure.
And it starts with the business of figuring out, okay, where are we at? What happened this year? What went well? What didn't go well? These are all in documents or spreadsheets or whatever. I do the same thing in my personal life. What went well? What do I need to change?
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And, it starts with, okay, what does just next year look like from a business standpoint? Because that's the biggest part of my life.
Sure.
Then I kind of figure out what do I want personally? Because what's going to make me wake up every single day and do the work stuff to make the life stuff purposeful.
That makes sense.
So there's this little kind of chart I fill out where it's like the 7 areas of life.
Okay.
Right. So personal, marriage, spiritual, health.
Okay.
I can't remember all of them. And then I just pick like 5 bullet points. What do I want to do better?
Yeah.
Like I think this year, I've said it for the last 3 years. I want to get better at like sending my friends birthday cards because I don't get to see them. So like I went out and I bought the birthday cards and I'm going to calendar them. And I think I'm just going to sit them right next to me at my desk.
Then you'll do it.
And then just make it a habit.
Right.
Because I don't know. I just want to get better.
Yeah.
And, I guess, do good and do the things that make other people feel good. Because I feel like when you put it out, it comes back.
It does. Yeah. Sometimes just wowing somebody by the fact that you took time.
Yeah.
You know, to do something.
Because at this point, time is the most valuable thing on earth right now because no one has it.
That's exactly right.
It's more valuable than money.
Yeah. I 100% it's more valuable than money.
Yeah.
And I think the word I hate the most is busy, because I feel like everybody's like, I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy. And I'm like, define.
Yeah.
Define busy, because I promise you can make time. You know, there's things that you can make time for. The things you value, you can make time for, right?
Yeah. And then we time block them.
And then we time block them. We've got little blocks all over our calendar.
No, I do.
I need white space.
I do.
I know. I'm with you, sister. Okay, so there, back in the beginning, you came up with the name RDJ Rocks. It kind of came from your brides, right? And then what did that first 2 or 3 years look like for you?
Well, can we bleep stuff out? Probably not.
Arthur's like, I don't want to edit that much.
No, I'm just teasing. It was a roller coaster. February 17th.
Okay.
I left. And
you left Nickelodeon Hotel. Okay.
They had the little party for me with pink and black things. They put my logo on a cake. Like, it was very cute. It was hard to leave.
Yeah.
And the very next day, I was in Winter Springs sharing an office with a photographer because I'm like, I can't have meetings at random spots. It didn't compute to me. And it was July. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment with the kids, and I was putting lighting underneath their bed. And then I was putting the DJ, like anywhere I could shove it in the house.
Got it. You just had equipment everywhere.
I had equipment everywhere. And we had done a bridal show that Sunday, left it in the trailer in front of the apartment complex. The next morning when we woke up to go grocery shopping, everything was stolen.
I remember this now that you say it. Oh my gosh.
It was 4 months after I had left salary, 401k, disability insurance, all the what ifs. You want to pause for a minute?
No, I'm in disbelief.
I didn't have insurance on the equipment.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
That's not true.
Yes.
Girlfriend, I
literally have chills
just remembering it.
What I felt like, everything in the world had stopped, and it felt like someone had taken a knife and chopped me down at my knees. How am I supposed to and here's the kicker of this.
Yeah.
I wasn't digital yet.
Because
I was still DJing on
right.
CDs. It was still too early for people were transitioning to digital.
But it wasn't a thing yet. So all your CDs, all your music.
My entire music library was stolen.
And you had events on the books.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, girl.
So I basically had 2 weeks to figure out a whole new system. I can't replace CDs. So I had to figure out how am I going to get an entire music library, 1. 2, figure out how to DJ digitally.
Right, because you had to learn that.
I did not know how to do that. I did not know the software. I didn't know the programs. So in 2 weeks, I had to reteach myself a whole new way of doing what I did.
Oh, my word.
Every single night for 2 weeks, I cried in the dining room. And so, lesson number 1 is you don't know what you don't know. People think, oh, I don't really need insurance. Honestly, that didn't even cross my mind.
It didn't.
It didn't when I first started.
Right.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I can see that. I mean, my mom had her own business, so she walked me through the beginning. But if I wouldn't have known that, I wouldn't have thought to go get insurance. I mean, we don't actually have that much to insure. I mean, we're wedding planners. We don't have anything. But I can not even imagine having to replace full equipment.
So in addition to, again, let's talk about the money and leaving security.
Right.
I had to go purchase everything all over again because I didn't have insurance on it.
And that was in the first 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
let me just breathe right now.
I know, you're like, okay, we just
I think I'm sweating now.
So that was your first kind of learning moment, right? Major learning moment.
Yes.
And then how did the next year kind of go? Because that was also summer, which is slow season here. Anyway.
The next kind of year, it went really, really fast. I remember the year after that, I was like, oh, wow, I have 50 weddings on the books. Okay. I can feed the kids. I can pay my half of the rent. Like, my husband doesn't have to support me. Like, I felt okay.
And you were by yourself still,
yes,
right? With 50 weddings.
Yep.
And is that normal for your team? Like 50 to me sounds high, but that's because we have a lot more going on in the weekend, I guess.
Yes. So kind of typically speaking, I would say someone who a DJ who has another either part-time or full-time position could probably do 30 to maybe 60.
Okay.
If they are really involved in their full-time position, like higher up on the ladder, maybe only 30 weddings max.
Got it. Okay.
But then some of my girls who are full-time, they can do 80 to 125.
So crazy.
If that's the only thing that they're doing.
Right. If that's what they're doing, it's just DJing.
I mean, because you think about it, there's 365 days of the year.
Yeah. And you guys can do 3 events a weekend, plus weekday, corporate, holiday parties, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So when did you make your first hire then? Because you're doing 50 weddings by yourself. You're running a business. You're growing it.
Yeah, I think it was about 2013. I continued to ask myself, when is it time? When is it time? When is it time?
Yeah.
Everybody asks that question. When you're brand new, you're
question.
like, how do I know when to hire?
Right.
And my answer to that question is, it's time to hire when it makes more sense for you to pay someone else to do something that you're doing because you are more valuable somewhere else.
Correct. Absolutely.
And that is how I have done this every single, and still to this day, 10 years in.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. I mean, that's a great way to look at it and say, you need to now focus on growing.
Yep.
And that your time is more valuable there. So you bring in someone that can DJ and that you can teach. But once you hire somebody, right now, it's not just you all up in your head. You gotta spit it out to someone else.
Yeah. That's actually the hardest piece for me.
Yeah.
I think I'm good at, off the cusp kind of teaching or talking or whatever.
Yeah.
But having to see, this is why, remember how I told you I had that minor in education?
Yes.
Hated it. They made me do lesson plans.
Oh, right.
So I did not retain that information, just so you know. But I remember in college, having to sit down and what do you mean a lesson plan? I have to organize my thoughts on what I'm going to teach. I can't do that.
Right. You just want to be like, hey, watch me. And by the way, here's what I'm doing.
Correct.
Right. I'm like that too. And that's a bad thing.
It's horrible.
Employees, it's
so
bad.
Actually, employee number 1, 2, 3, 4, at least, that's how it was.
Really? Okay.
And to be really, really honest, here's another little lesson. Most people can't learn like that.
Right. I mean, because how do they refer back or, when they're stuck, what do they do?
So there's only one left out of those. Because you got to be a unique type of personality, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I think over the years, I've kind of grown too through all of this.
Sure.
Learning how to do it better every time.
Yeah. You seem so systematic. I mean, everything you do, it's so funny because it is a little bit opposite of me. I tend to just be like, here's what we're doing. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I do that, but then I create the system afterwards.
And that's so, I want a little bit of that. I do because it's like, well, we got to get it on paper. Everybody has to know what we're doing because I tend to run into staff meetings and say, here's what we're doing. But if somebody wasn't there, then they didn't catch the memo, you know? And I'm like, how did you not know that?
Yeah.
So that's something I'm growing in for sure. But you definitely have a lot of systems in place, which I think is really valuable. So it's interesting to hear that. Maybe that wasn't always the case.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
I was forced into it because of the many mistakes that I've made.
Sure. Yeah.
Whether it be I've either disappointed one of my team members
Yeah.
or my expectations were too high and then they didn't deliver what I thought they were going to deliver.
Sure.
So then I had to take a step back and be like, okay, this isn't my team.
Yep.
This is me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in every situation that I run into, no matter if it's my team, a vendor, inside the industry, outside the industry, and someone doesn't deliver on the expectation that I'm thinking, before I even react, I think, okay, what could I have done differently in this situation to prevent this interaction? Because it might be me.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I explain my expectations?
And to be honest, most of the time, Brandy, it's been me.
Sure.
And so then I'm like, okay, how do I make sure I don't do this again? Even if it's not a huge mistake, it's just a uh-oh.
Right. Because you want to correct it, but you also want to correct the way you explained it.
Well, yeah, because you can't grow if you're doing the same things that you always do.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. So you're 10 years in, right? Which is crazy. I mean, isn't that such a crazy milestone? I mean, it's such an accomplishment.
It has definitely put my mindset in a place of massive reflection.
Sure.
And deep gratitude and kind of just going, it's like you play the movies in your head, right?
Yep.
All the things. Like, I'll give you an example that came across the other day. This will get me a little emotional, but I remember, when you first start off hopefully there's some Orlando vendors who are listening that feel this way right now, because this will reach you. But when you first start, you think, you look at the people who have done it and who in your mind look successful, right? And you're like, ooh, I can't wait to like do a wedding with them. Or like, oh my God, like what if one day they like put me on their vendor list?
Yes.
And then it's like, yes, now I can tag them and now I've like made it. Right? So I remember the day that you called me, you said, hey, can we meet? And you came to my office and we had him. And I'm like, oh my God, Brandy Gar is meeting with me. Like what?
You're
like she wants to ask me about like possibly referring me as the DJ. Like what is happening?
That's so funny to hear from my side, because same people do that to you all the time, right? And you don't realize it.
I'm sure. Actually, I don't know if people do it to me.
You don't until somebody says it,
but
right?
I'm sure. Like, I'm sure it's happened.
That's so sweet of you. I appreciate that. But I mean, we love you guys, and I think you came into the market like a firestorm. Like it was like all of a sudden, like, who is this girl? You know, and I love that because, I mean, people say that's kind of how we came into the market. Like you came in with the brand, you came in with a focus, and you know, you've said I never expected to have other DJs, but it always seemed like you did. You know what I mean? Like you always had 10 years from now in mind. That's what it seemed like to
what
me.
was it? I think it was 2013 I hired my first, or I started training my first DJ.
Yeah.
So really it was within the first 3 years.
Right, which is really a short period of time.
I mean, it really is, because, you know, we talk about our industry and, you know, they always say that most vendors will fail within the first 2 years.
Right. Yep.
Which is why it's very hard for me to refer someone who's under 2 years.
But you see that, right? I mean, we have that happen a lot where, you know, a new planner will come in the market, or a new photographer, whoever, and we're like, oh gosh, they're capturing a decent share. But then it doesn't last. It doesn't. And sometimes it does. I mean, and it's great, you know, and you're like, hey, let's have coffee. Cheers. You know, this is great. But I'm with you. It's kind of like, let's wait a couple years.
Well, and I think it just comes down to, and I say this all the time when I'm bringing on someone new.
Yeah.
You only see the Instagram.
Yep.
And you only see the website.
Yep.
And you only see the Instagram stories.
Yep.
But as much as you see there is 500 times pressure that comes to getting to that point.
Yes.
Pressure from your clients, pressure from vendors, personal pressure.
Yes.
Maybe your boyfriend just broke up with you, or your girlfriend just made you mad, or like mom is going into the hospital. Right. Not for anything like whatever, but still, like, I'd rather be there. Yep. But as a DJ, you have to turn it on and you have to perform.
Yep.
Period.
Absolutely.
I think the same thing with you guys. You can't show up looking like a hot mess.
No.
You need to look like you're put together, and you perform on your own level.
We do. I have always admired that about DJs, though, and really known that's a huge pressure for you guys, because you can't, I mean, your voice has to sound like you are more excited to be there than anyone else. You know,
I know.
You have to be on it. And so, like, your phone can't ring with bad news. You can't bring any baggage in with you because you're the show.
There was a very, very serious conversation between my husband and I was like, if you're mad, you got to save it till Sunday.
Right.
You cannot give it to me on a Saturday.
Yeah. Because it's too much. It just totally changes your demeanor, right? Yep. And you can't do that. Nope. You got to go in ready to rock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every
time.
Oh my
gosh. That's so crazy. So now how many people do you have on your team?
So total employees, it kind of fluctuates because we have seasonal, like just event staff.
Yep.
But ish like 32 to 38.
Because you have RDJ Rocks, but then you also have Photo Booth Rocks.
We do. So this was actually very intentional. So if you want to talk about bring it back to branding.
Yeah.
So we kept getting brides that would say, we want to book you and we want to book you with a photo booth. And I'm like, I don't have one of those.
Right.
So what's the first thing you do? You call other vendors and you say, can I contract you?
Sure.
And there at the time, there was not really anyone in the photo booth kind of circuit that at least I knew.
Sure.
And then the one that I found, I was like, okay, perfect. Send me a contract. No, we're good. No, send me a contract.
No, please. Yeah.
Like I need to know that it's like in your books and like official.
Yep.
No, we're good. Like it's there. And I'm okay. This is not going to work for me.
Nope.
Like if I'm making a promise to a bride, I'm gonna need a promise made to me, kind of thing, and like legally,
right?
Not just like So there was a local convention that was coming that had all kinds of like theme park stuff, and my husband and I started doing research on photo booths in general. Mm-hmm. And the company that we had found that we'd liked, they were going to be showcasing. So we went to the convention. At the time, there was one good manufacturer of photo booths for events. Everything else was vending. right?
okay.
So like you'd take it to a carnival, set it up, put your dollar bills in. Those were ugly,
Nah.
right? And so the machine was beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could picture it in a ballroom. I could picture it wherever. For those of you who know which photo booths we have, they're the big giant, box ones.
Yeah.
But at the time that was it. And they were beautiful. And
they were white or black, right?
They were
Like,
white
very
or black.
sleek. Yeah.
Yes. It really fit well into an industry that needed to be pretty.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I remember getting a soda and a pretzel and we sat down and we're like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, like here goes our freaking house money.
Right.
So now we got to stay in this apartment for at least another year because we can't afford to buy a house.
Oh my gosh.
And so we were like, whatever,
It's worth
let's just do it.
Yeah.
So what I would say now is looking back, if someone told me every mistake I would make, I would not do this.
You wouldn't have done it.
I wouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. The amount of either physical or emotional or financial hardships, yeah, it was hard.
How do you protect that, do you feel like now?
That's when the boundaries came. That's when time blocking came.
Yeah.
That's when I had to be intentional about when I'm at the office. I have to get it done. I have to clock out. You get to the garage and you cannot bring it through that threshold.
That's awesome.
And if you can't do that, that means you got to go back to the office and figure
Right.
it out before you come home.
And it works.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of working is figuring out what your boundaries are going to be and how it's going to work. And
Yeah.
So where do you see our DJ Rocks? I'm not going to ask you in 5 years.
Yeah.
We know that you don't love that. But even this year, like what do you see happening or even for you personally? Because are you still doing weddings?
Yes.
It's a lot of questions in one. But
no, I love all those questions. I ask myself that all the time. And if you ask me on a bad day, I'm going to be like, I'm done with weddings.
But you turned in your budget today, so you're good.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
So I still love them because getting to the point of introductions, first dance, when a bride's walking down the aisle and I've had the conversation with her about, what she's envisioning, and then I see him and then I'm probably going to get emotional. Those moments are all the things that drive everything that I do.
Yeah.
Everything. So if I'm not in it, I think I might lose it.
Okay.
So I've got myself to a good number right now that I think that I can balance both because I do enjoy, I think I truly am left and right brain.
Okay.
Like I love being creative, but I love spreadsheets and I love numbers and I love logistics. So, there's dynamic pieces of me. And so I love doing it all. I don't want to do just one. I also can't ever picture myself just like being in an office 5 days a week.
But you're also speaking a lot now, right?
Yeah.
You've got a lot more speaking engagements and just kind of being Kristin,
Yeah.
right? And so that all comes with time too.
Yeah.
right?
We've got it to the point now where it's stable.
Okay.
It's stable. We've got a really good foundation.
Yeah.
We've got a really great team. I went through the process of making sure that I was like hiring correctly, making sure they fit our core values,
Smart.
that I'm teaching correctly. Yeah. So, all those mistakes led to where it's year 10 and I feel like I might have it together, and another kind of piece of my goal is inspired by my upbringing.
Okay.
Where nothing was ever stable.
Okay.
And I want to be able to create opportunities for women, not necessarily who are in my shoes, but had to work hard. And I want our DJ Rocks to be able to provide for them when they've worked hard.
Yep.
So, one of my goals as a business owner was to get to the point where, okay, the business can afford to take care of its team members with health insurance.
Oh,
and so 2019, full-timers, they had the option of health insurance. So
I love that.
I would, there is a dollar amount in my head that I'd love to see just because on paper it looks cool.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're like, let's get to this number. Yeah.
And then I've made it, right?
Right. And then you're like, now what?
Yes. And I do have a few other, just like business goals,
Sure.
right? Like with the health insurance, we do have now disability insurance and life insurance that we give them.
That's awesome.
So obviously the next goal is how do I figure out how to get this bad boy to the point where it can contribute to retirement.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have no idea what that looks like. But I think with all that, and getting to this point in life, my heart has it's kind of in the forefront of things.
Okay.
Right. So just like helping, giving back, this whole thing we talked about, like love, lead, excel. And I feel like that's always been in me, right? Like people need to love what they do. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do it well. So lead by example. I love it. I can't do manuals.
Yep.
So I'm just going to have to show you. And even with our kids, I'm a stepmom.
Yep.
So the only thing I know how to do is lead by example because they were watching everything that we do.
Yes.
And I don't get 7 days a week with them because number one, I'm stepmom. Number two, I'm a business owner.
Sure.
And I also, my team members, I don't want to say they're my children, but I give back to them like they are. I want to teach them. I want to grow them and whatever. So, just like you got to lead by example. You can't be a business owner and, well, we'll pause from there. But then just taking all that and just excelling. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now and figuring out what's next. But I just want to surround myself with people who believe in those things and who want to love and enjoy what they're doing and make money and provide for others while they're doing it.
Yeah. So say that phrase again that you just,
love, lead, excel.
Right. And I think you brought that in this morning, right?
I did.
You brought me a desk calendar with that on it. And I immediately saw it and was like, this is so Kristin. So I love that it already feels like who you are, which I think is great. And then I'm really intrigued to see where it goes in 2020.
Me too, because I don't have plans.
I know. We talked about that before the show started. And I said, so what is this? And she was like, I don't know yet. And I love that because it will be something. It already is so much of who you are that I know it's going to be something to watch. So I would say I'm excited to watch and see what it becomes in only a year because I think it's going to be really interesting. So tell our listeners where they can find you and follow you so they can watch what this becomes.
Well, I time block like crazy Instagram, but I'm on it all the time. So I would say Instagram.
Okay.
I love to connect there because I can watch what other people are doing, even if I can't send a text or call.
Okay.
So at Meet Kristin, Kristin, and they can follow our DJ company at our DJ Rocks or our photo booth brand at Photo Booth Rocks.
I love it. And what's the website for RDJ Rocks?
It is www.rdjrocks.com.
I love it. Kristin, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for being so open and honest about your company and your personal life. And I think people are going to really get a lot of inspiration out of this.
Good.